Welcome in, folks, to another episode of What's Bruin. Gayle, there you are. How you doing tonight?
Where am I?
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. Before we go any further, I don't want to hesitate to bring on our guest because I know we only have him on for a little bit.
Okay.
But tonight we are joined by the one, the only, the Baked Bear himself, Mr. Jay Pike. Jay, your show just came back. First episode dropped yesterday.
Yep.
How you doing?
Yeah, doing all right. I'm not sure I'm worthy of that introduction, but I appreciate it anyway. Thanks for having me on, inviting me on. Yeah, it was good to get back and going. Gayle, luckily, was nice enough to join me as well because I needed her to pick up the slack for me. I'll tell you. So it was a little out of maybe a little out of practice, but it was fun to do. I'm glad to have gotten back into it, and I think I'm going to have fun with the format this year.
Yeah, so you're doing it every roughly 10 or 12 games or so, you said?
Yeah, the idea is every 10-ish games and then look at them like as a snapshot and try to, have the 20,000-foot view kind of thing. And just try and keep an eye on the fans and, the roller coaster that no matter how it's going, they're going to put themselves on a roller coaster. So, try and monitor that and see what's real and what's not.
Well, Gayle, you were his first guest for it was the third season, right, Jay?
Yeah. But that's
Awesome.
what I'm calling them.
I mean, yeah, I don't even, they all roll together anyway, but, yeah. So how are you guys both doing with this, we'll put air quotes around season right now? As you mentioned, Jay, I think roller coaster is a great way to describe it, especially with the fans. I'm already sick of seeing all the signs along the way that keep saying play the kids, play the kids, play the kids, but we'll keep beating that horse down every week we're on here.
Yeah, it's for me it's still too early. Like even looking at the first 10, 11 games as that snapshot, it's still the no matter what you saw, no matter what you wanted to believe after the first 3 games, which was 82-0, here comes the perfect season, and then what you wanted to believe after the 6-game losing streak. Either way, we're going to have forgotten about those in 2 months. They're going to feel like a whole other season to us. So there's a lot to not like, but it's too early for me to be upset or have a panic button.
Gayle, are you panicking? Are you upset? Are you pulling your hair out yet?
No, I think, between the roller coaster, getting on the bus, off the bus, on the bus, off the bus, there are times where they look absolutely brilliant, and there are other times where they look absolutely horrific. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde doesn't do them justice right now. They're all over the map, and I'm not sure, like Jay and I talked about it on his pod yesterday. Like, is it the system? Are they, because they're learning man to man instead of zone? We saw Charlie McAvoy leave his man to pinch down and help Mason Lohrei, who didn't need help because he was on his man, which ultimately led to a goal. So, like, is that part of it? Is it, when Marco Sturm talks about players not buying in, who's not buying in? Because I see the effort, I just see mistakes. So who's not buying in?
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot. I think Dom brought it up, and I'm sure he's going to pop up at some point.
Hopefully.
When you have, you're 11 games into the season and they've had probably 5 practices.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
I went back and I looked at the schedule. I did some digging after last night.
By the way, you got a haircut.
Yes, I did. Thank you for noticing. I did some digging after last night's schedule, or after last night's game, and just to look at the schedule, first of all, they are only 27 days into the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And in that they have played, 27. They have played 12 games, 3 sets of back-to-backs, all of them with travel, not to mention an additional 6 days of just traveling.
Right.
There have only been 5 or 6 days where this team could practice.
Right. Yeah, and I don't consider morning skates practice because they're not practicing. They're looking at specific drills, but it's not a full-fledged practice. It's not like today. They're not. They had today off and they play tomorrow. So yes, they're going to have a morning skate, but it's not going to be a full-fledged practice because
I
they
could
never have a full-fledged practice the day
I
of the
could
game.
only find 3 times where either yourself or Ty Anderson sent out a tweet regarding when the team was going to practice. 3 times.
Yeah.
And that was October 12th, the 22nd, and the 24th.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there was somewhere in there on the 5th, 6th, or 7th of practice as well, because that was like the 3 days off that they've had in one stretch. But otherwise, it's been travel and games.
Yeah.
Of course, this team is going to struggle to learn this system. Dom mentioned it, as you said, in the summer. He mentioned it. And the fact that they've taken 59 penalties to lead the league in penalties. They lead the league in games played, penalties, minor penalty minute, PIMs per game. None of those are recipe parts for success. I can't get too, like you said, Jay, I can't get too upset because it's only 10 games. It's not a great 10 games or dozen games, but I mean, the offense looks better. They're one of the best teams at scoring goals too. Can't really fault them for that. I mean, who would have thought we'd be here 12 games in and being like, the problem is defense?
No, and their penalty kill looked really good, with the exception of that Ottawa game where they gave up 4 power play goals on 5 opportunities.
Their PK sits at 81.6%, good for 13th in the league.
Right, but it was better than that before the Ottawa game.
Oh, yeah.
And even Marco Sturm's quote was the best. He's like, there's only when you put yourself in the box as much as they have, you're going to flounder. You're not, you know what I mean? You're eventually going to. And like we talk about ad nauseum. I use that word all the time. But when you're in the box, like against Ottawa, 5 shorthanded situations, 10 minutes, David Pastrnak is not on the ice. Or more, Jay and I talked about that yesterday too. Yes. You don't have your top offensive weapons on the ice when you're shorthanded. And in that Ottawa game, 3 of those penalties, 2 were McAvoy's, 1 was Zadorov. So your 2 best defensive penalty killers were in the box.
And none of it is like Boston Bruins hockey, right? Like the whole conversation, well, there were a lot of conversations around the roster, but one of the conversations around the roster was who's going to score? Where's the goal scoring from, right? Are we planning to win 2-1? Is that the whole plan? And now we're like, fuck, we can put up 5 and 6, no problem, but are we going to allow 6 or 7?
Right.
But then it's the goalies must not be playing well. No, the goalies are actually playing fine, and most nights are playing more than well enough to win. It's the defense it's an abject disaster. It's a mess, and it's with these so many mistakes, and it's the complete opposite of what we thought the season was going to look like. I guess aside from perhaps the goaltending, we all hoped that would still be,
No, but even last night, Korpisalo, they let in 2 early goals. Within 5 minutes, they were down 2-0. He turned aside the next 33 shots he faced.
Yeah. They are tied with St. Louis for 44 goals allowed, worst in the league. So they've scored I think the second most in the league. They're tied with Pittsburgh with 40. Or no, Pittsburgh has 40. They have 39. That's what it is. But
that's
they've allowed 44.
Right. So look at that, though. Look at that goal differential. They've allowed 44, but they've scored 39.
Yeah, they're -5.
Right. So that's a lot less than I thought going into the season that they were going to allow for goals. Or that they were going to score for goals, I should say.
Yeah, that the goal scoring hasn't been the problem, as you said, Jay. Like people are looking and going, "Oh, it must be the goaltending fault because they're giving up 44 goals, the worst, one of the worst in the league." But the problem with that is I guarantee you the goaltending save percentage and goals against average both increase and decrease respectively if the defense in front of them is just a little bit better.
Well, and I think getting Lindholm back last night calmed the defense down a bit. And I hate to say it, but having Lori out of that game, there was a lot less mistakes defensively.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing Lindholm, what the linchpin he's become. I don't know, when was it last year or the year before that he had an extended time where he was injured?
Last year he was at 65 games.
Right. Well, okay, there you go. Yeah, you'd think I'd remember that, but then I remember my nickname, and I'm like, oh, right, that's why I forget. But I remember during that learning, like seeing then the impact and how important he was,
Yeah.
and then now I think we've seen it. Like it's the question to me, like it's a 1A 1B between him and McAvoy, but I lean towards Lindholm as the A of the 1A 1B. To be perfectly honest with you,
Yeah,
and I think I'm seeing again why.
You and I had this conversation yesterday that I said overall, to me, Lindholm is the best defenseman the Bruins have. Overall, from 200 feet, the 200-foot game, penalty kill, power play. He is, because he's better on the power play than McAvoy. He's a better puck mover. He when he knows his assignment, and he has that chemistry with Peak. You know what I mean? Like they haven't played together that long, because you got to remember his partner was Brandon Carlo.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But he's built something with Peak already, because Peak plays better when he's playing with him.
I think everybody plays better when they're playing with Lindholm, right? And again, that's like Lori does, Mac does. And again, so that's where it's like all the conversations are always Mac centered on the who's the Bruins defenseman. And I don't see the media, like the national narrative, I don't see changing. But I think amongst Bruins fans, that narrative might be changing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was between the conversation you guys had on your show, Jay, and there was another show I was listening to earlier today. And as I was driving, the question popped into my head. It was specifically conversation about the captaincy and that sort of thing. And immediately in my head, the first thought that I had is, you guys remember a couple years ago, the Mitchell Miller debacle, how the locker room handled that. The leaders in the locker room went to management and basically said, we're not doing this. We don't want this. And management listened. And from the thought process that I was having, I went, can you really see that sit down, serious conversation being had between management and David Pastrnak? And Pastrnak going, this isn't what we're about. We don't want him here.
Well, that's not fair, because David Pastrnak and Patrice Bergeron, there is no other Patrice Bergeron.
No, there isn't.
And if Patrice Bergeron was not captain back then, I'm not sure anyone has that conversation with management.
But Chara would have.
But Chara was already gone.
I know. But what I'm saying is,
what I'm saying is,
when you're going to let me finish where I'm going with this though. When you're naming a captain, which they have not done this season, right? You need someone who's going to lead in all situations, not just the good ones. Yeah, Pastrnak is a happy-go-lucky guy, and he is a leader in the locker room. No denying that. But like you said, he's not going to management to have that kind of conversation. Neither is Charlie McAvoy. I can easily see Hampus Lindholm having that kind of role. I'm not saying he's going to be the captain. I think that's why they're going with the three leaders that they're going with, though.
I'm not sure that Pastrnak doesn't have the balls to do that. You know what I mean? Like last year, he was put out to the Wolves. He was the only leader in that locker room. I think
he's growing them. I'll put it that way.
Right. But
I think he's growing them.
I think that if for any reason they were going to bring in any of the four or the five.
Dom immediately mentions the haircut.
Dom, you're late. I already said it. But I think like who was it? Vegas that brought in Hart, right?
Yep.
I think if the Bruins were going to bring in McLeod or any of those guys, I think that David Pastrnak would step up and be like, no. I think he would. Because I think he knows the fan base enough. And he was here with the Mitchell Marner thing. Marner. Not Mitchell Miller. Yeah. Sorry, not Mitch Marner. But you know what I mean? Like, he's been through it. So has it McAvoy with Bergeron. So I think that while they may not be as, what's the word? They may not be as polished.
That's the word I was just thinking
to
of.
the media, but they're still talking. They're still leading. And I think that they would want their voices heard. So I would have to disagree with you. I think it's going to be a lot different. It's still going to be different because there is no Chara, there is no Bergeron. You know what I mean? There is no David Krejci.
Well, I think that's part of why we're seeing, and Jay, let me know what your thoughts are, like why they're taking the leadership approach that they are, because they want guys like McAvoy and Pastrnak to become those polished leaders that they aren't yet, but you have that polished leadership out of a Hampus Lindholm who is also able to lead on the ice.
But I disagree with you about David Pastrnak not being as polished as Hampus Lindholm. I think David Pastrnak is more of a leader than you're giving him credit for. I think that Nikita Zadorov is actually more of a polished leader than Hampus Lindholm. Hampus Lindholm is not in front of the media as much as David Pastrnak and Charlie McAvoy.
I'm not even. I don't know, Jay. What do you think?
Well, I mean,
I'm not disagreeing
absolutely
with the fact that Pasternak's a leader. That's why I think McAvoy's comment about having a room full of captains wasn't inaccurate when he said it. I just think in that type of a more serious way. Am I making sense?
I think so. Like for me, it's interesting trying to put it like the lens that you set it up with of the Mitch Miller situation and all of that, and trying to think like right away I'm like, okay, I could see Zadorov having that conversation, I could see Lindholm having that conversation, but I didn't flinch on Pasta either. Like I don't know, I saw like what I saw out of him last year was incredible to me. I would have had him, I would have given him the C heading into this season. Based on last year, if it was simply my call. Now I think there's a number of guys who could get it. I really do. I don't think it's just locked into Pasta. I think Zadorov and Lindholm will both be genuine candidates for it. Hampus, not Elias. I mean, maybe Elias is.
Well, I think Elias is more of a behind the scenes kind of leader.
Yeah.
He again is not as like Hampus is not as, again, he's not in front of the media.
Well,
and I know that. And I know, Chris, that, what they do on and off the ice, but it's not just that. It's being able to, like, there's a reason why when Jim Montgomery was fired, the only three players that spoke to the media were Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, and Charlie McAvoy. They were the only three players that were available.
Right, and two of them aren't here anymore. Two of them aren't here anymore.
What?
Charlie Coyle's not here anymore.
I didn't say Charlie Coyle. I said Charlie McAvoy. It was David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, and Brad Marchand. Those three were the only three that were available to the media when Jim Montgomery was fired last year.
Right, and now with Marchand out, you move Hampus Lindholm in, and I know you said he's not in front of the media as much, but he missed 65 games last year, and he's missed all but 4 games this year. He's not in front of the media when he's not playing.
But even when he was playing, he's not, like, that's my point. When he was in front, even when the year before, when he wasn't injured, and it was the first year of Brad Marchand's captaincy, like, Patrice Bergeron was already gone, David Krejci was already gone. The players that were in front of the media the most were Charlie Coyle, Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand. And not just because of their offensive skills or the games that they were having. And obviously Jeremy Swayman was in front of the media a lot. But because those are the players that they're the faces of the locker room. They're the ones that are talking the most. And now Zadorov has become one of those players because the way he articulates specific answers. It's not a matter of just longevity or this, that, or the other thing. They're looking at, when they talk about leaders, and that was one of the things that Charlie McAvoy said at breakup day last year, is that one of the reasons why is that those players, David Pastrnak and Nikita Zadorov, had to step up because there was no one else.
Right.
You know what I mean? Brad Marchand got traded, and before that, he was injured. Charlie McAvoy was injured. Charlie Coyle got traded. Brandon Carlo got traded. Those were all the guys that were front and center in front of the media, and then they were all gone. So it left David Pastrnak on an island. So Nikita Zadorov stepped up, and he became one of those voices to not only the media, but also to the guys in the locker room. He took that defensive core and put them under his wing while McAvoy and Lindholm were injured and Brandon Carlo was gone.
Yeah, he was also one of the more veteran defensemen that they had at the time because of that.
Right, but my point is, though, is that it's not a matter of being 100% polished. It's also having that comfortability. And David Pastrnak is 100% more comfortable in front of the media these last 2 seasons than he's ever been.
Yeah, I think there's still development to what he is becoming as a leader. And I think that's part of why they went with, at least in my opinion, why they went without naming the captain just yet, so that polished leader can come out of a season like this. And you mentioned Zadorov quite a bit. I mean, you have last week were pounding the table for him to get paired with McAvoy. We saw that in the Colorado game. It was a defensive, I don't even know, phenomenon where they played actually well, beat one of the best teams in the league, and then we immediately go back to Lauri McAvoy. How much of your hair were you pulling out on that?
Yeah. I don't want to see Lauri get pushed aside, kind of like what Sturm said. We're not punishing him. We're not, the Bruins aren't just putting him as a healthy scratch to punish him. You know what I mean? I think it does him good to actually watch the game from the ninth floor. Jay and I talked about this yesterday on his pod. But you could see the calmness of the 6 defensemen last night. They weren't running around. And I don't know if it's because Lauri has lost his own confidence because of those mistakes or because of how horrendous he played last year. I don't know. I'm not ready to close the book on Lauri, but they definitely played 100% better without him in the lineup last night defensively.
Because Lauri made you smoke this year so far.
Well, I mean, I think fans wanted to look at him as a fully fledged NHLer even last year, but looking at him this year, still, it's he's still very much a developmental piece. He is not that's the contract that he got, the little extension kind of, it was the perfect little one for that. We got a couple of years to see how this goes and how this develops. It's a lot up to him too, because you're talking about with the practices, it's harder for him to develop, right? You hope that he's doing the various things on his own, but without having that, actual mandated practice, that's a big deal for him. He needs some of that.
And last year he lost McAvoy. You know what I mean? And then he was playing once McAvoy and Lindholm were both injured, he was playing with Carlo. And Carlo just isn't the right defenseman to teach a young kid, in my opinion. You know what I mean? It's got to be either Zadorov, McAvoy, or Lindholm. Has to be one of the 3 that's taking a young defenseman under their wing. But I'm not sure if McAvoy either doesn't trust him because he's changing his assignment and going to cover for I don't know. I don't know if they need to build more chemistry. I don't know. I'm not in McAvoy's head.
There's also what's the big fucking deal about not playing them together?
Right.
That just becomes my answer. It's why isn't it working? Who fucking cares? Then don't. Right. Sorry, am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
We were already going to mark it. Dom, hopefully your grandson is not watching. We're a few in already. I'm sure Dom would have said something. So.
And Dom, you're absolutely right, though. I mean, he made the comment about, Chara 0 games.
Yeah, and but that's why I'm not talking about games played or anything like that. I'm talking strictly off the ice type situations. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. It was just a different way that I hadn't thought about it before, even myself. Where, like you said, Jay, I'm sitting there going, I didn't flinch with some of these other names going, how would they have handled the situation? And when I got to Pasternak, I started to have the same reaction, but then I just kind of went, but he's also a little bit more happy-go-lucky, a little bit more of that goofball type guy. Not to say that it's a bad thing. It's just, could that, and I don't know, maybe there's a reason why we keep hearing about the buy-in, the getting players on the bus, and I'm not saying Pasternak's on the bus or not or anything like that. It's just, some players in a room like that don't necessarily all get along, and I'm wondering if, depending on how the leadership structure is, because we have different types of leaders, if that's kind of playing in, because you don't have that one person that is the designated leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Bergeron retiring really left quite a power vacuum. Like, and Marchand filled it, kind of in the
See,
no.
Hold on. See how she's shaking her head?
No, I know she
that
is.
feeling she has towards Marchand is what I'm sitting here going, I wonder if there are people who have or were looking at Pasternak in a similar way and just going, I just don't see captain right now. And if that plays a part in what's going on in the room.
Last year when he was on an island.
I agree. It did for me as well. But I'm just wondering.
It did for him. It did for him. He has vocally said that he never wanted a letter. And then after he became the only person that was left on that island, he showed more leadership in that month and a half. And I hate to say it because I know everyone loves him, than Brad Marchand did in 2 seasons.
But here's the thing. You mean to tell me that the possibility of someone, one or two people in that locker room going, there's no way he flipped the switch. This isn't we saw it. We've seen Pasternak for however many years, ever since he's been in the league. We've seen him evolve.
But that's the point. He didn't have to. Look at who was the leaders when he was there. Look at who were the leaders when he was younger. That. So he didn't have to. He stepped up when he needed to. And that has nothing to do, you can't, that's the whole thing. I wish I could say that Brad Marchand stepped up when he needed to, but I can't say that. But I can say that David Pasternak did.
We who have seen Pasternak for as long as we have saw a switch get flipped. Jay, did you see that switch get flipped with him?
I mean, that's what it felt like last year, was when I don't even know what. I mean, maybe it was just a slow switch that went on. I don't know, but I mean, at one point last year, he was literally, and I'm using it correctly, the best player in the world in 2025 from January 1 to the end of that regular season. Yep. Nobody else was better than him in the world at hockey, and he just put the team on his back. To me, it was a show of force. It was, and I know people, they thought it was unfair. Oh, but it's not fair to Mac because he's not there. And it's like, okay, that's true. But
Mac didn't put the team on his back.
Exactly, right? Look at what we got from Pasta because Mac was out. If Pasta had been out for that length of time, are we talking the same way about McAvoy? It's hard to say. You don't know until you're in it. And I think we learned that from Pasta last year. We saw that switch for him, right?
And the other thing too, Jay, is that everyone nationally and locally said the only success the Bruins had last year was because of Pasternak.
Real quick, that's what you're talking about, that moment that you only know it when you see it with Pasternak. Are we almost seeing the reverse happen right now with McAvoy, because he is supposed to be the guy on defense and he's just not living up to it?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what a regression is, right? And that's kind of how his play is felt. I don't think last night, the last night was, again, like we talked about, was a decent game for him, and maybe again he's going to find it. It is, I mean, Dom pointed it out in the chat, like it is a difficult system to learn, and Mac, as good as he is, it's he's having a hard time with it. Will he get there? I have to think so. Again, it's been now 12 games. Like, we have to give him more time, but
yeah, I'm willing to give him more time. I'm not trying to write him off.
But even with that, still, the point is still there that, I don't know, Pasta, like, again, when we're talking only considering those two guys for captaincy, it's still, to me, Pasta ahead by quite a bit. I would have Lindholm and Zadorov be considered before Mac at this point.
What do you think of that, Gayle?
Well, I think that people automatically, and we kind of have talked about this a little bit, I think that people have it in their heads that, they only see through their black and gold colored glasses, and that they don't see that. And again, I love Brad Marchand. He was not a good captain. He did not deserve to be handed that C. They just gave it to him because,
I mean, they needed someone to wear the C for their 100th season. Let's be honest, they did.
Right, and he was the longest tenured. He was part of the 2011 Stanley Cup team. I get all the reason behind it, but when you look at that player and you look at who is he a leader to? I expected him to have more of because when he was the alternate behind Chara and Bergeron, they didn't have to default to him because there was Chara and Bergeron. And when Bergeron was captain, and then Krejci came back, and it was Bergeron, Krejci, and Marchand for, and it was like half the season it was Krejci, half the season it was Coyle, or whatever they did. Again, Marchand wasn't in the spotlight.
Right.
Because it was Bergeron. When Marchand stepped into that role, I don't see him doing what Pasta did last year. I don't see him instilling a culture. I didn't see him creating the culture or continuing the culture that Chara and Bergeron built. And he was there for all of it. But if you remember, while he was there for all of it, that was when he was slew footing. That was when he was licking people. That was when he was, he was stepping outside the line.
Yeah.
So because he's Brad Marchand and he's the rat, that doesn't mean he gets to be captain. Like, I still haven't heard anyone's argument for why he was a good captain, other than, well, he was the longest tenured Bruin. Give me a reason why he should have been captain.
Yeah, what was a moment where he showed his leadership that showed why he was the captain?
I agree, Dom. It's too much is made of captaincy, but when you have captains like Chara and you have captains like Bergeron, you have captains like Ray Bourque, you have captains like Joe Sakic. I'm just going to talk about,
Sidney Crosby.
You talk about players like that, Steve Stamkos. You know what I mean? Like, where did Brad Marchand fit in that list?
Okay.
Yeah.
I got to go in a minute, but this is interesting. And Gayle and I almost got into the Marchand conversation last night because I happen to agree with her. It was not a good captain. By the end of it, like I was disappointed in it long before it ended. Like, there was just, it never seemed to work. But I did, at the time when he got it, like, I fully endorsed him getting the captaincy. He had a master, he had a bachelor in leadership from Chara, and then I got a master's from Krejci, and then a bachelor of education from fucking Bergeron. Mm-hmm. He deserved the shot. Mm-hmm. I just don't think he did anything with it.
Right.
In fact, I think he did he did himself a disservice with the time as the captain. But again, I mean, I do agree with
I mean, if we're being honest,
made of it, but
Bergeron's captaincy was too short.
Yeah.
Oh,
because
he was a co-captain.
Because Chara was there for so long.
Yeah.
But Chara deserved it. I mean, at first when Chara like when it was put in his contract that he had to be made captain, I was like, what? But he did. He changed the culture. him and Bergeron changed the culture. And
oh, Dom.
Go ahead.
All right, so
Before Jay leaves.
I did have one other question for Jay before he heads out. But Dom wants to know, what do you do if Korpisalo gets hurt?
I guess panic a little bit for sure. Like, is DiPietro ready to come up and take on that? Like, I doubt DiPietro comes up and gets 1.5 games to every Swayman game, or 1.75. It feels like Korpisalo's getting. If DiPietro comes up, it's going to be Swayman for 3, DiPietro for 1, Swayman for 4, DiPietro for 1. I don't. The 1 year we've seen that, it didn't go well, so it makes you a little nervous, I think. But
especially with this defense in front of them,
like, honestly, I mean, but then there's also that. What's the fucking difference? You can put Vasilevsky back there. I'm not sure we're still not losing these games 7-2.
Listen, Patrick Waugh could have put on pads last night. And
like the giant ones he had in his last years, right? Like those massive fucking pads. And he still would have had dropped 6 on him. So, like, if Korpisalo gets hurt, I think it would suck and hurt a lot more than many fans, I think, want to believe. Or at the same time, like you said, you don't know until it happens. For all we know, Swayman, again, he already looks very good this year. Perhaps he falls into it and just, can take on that kind of load and excels playing 3 and 4 games in a row instead of, wobbling.
Well, and I think this schedule is hindering what the Bruins want to do with their goaltending. You know what I mean?
I think so. Jay, real quick, my last question for you before you head out, because I know you're on your way out. There's been a lot of discussion on Bruin social media. Pavel Zacha. How do you feel about a possible Zacha trade? Gayle, we'll have this conversation after he heads out. I want him to get his piece in here real quick before he heads out, though.
First, I'll compliment Gayle on her choice of headpiece. Very well done.
Thank you.
I love Zacha. Truly, I do. He's a great dude, great contract, very, very useful piece. But like, when I think 5 years, even 3-4 years down the road, he's not one of those. I see Lindholm, I see the other Lindholm, I see Pasta, Mac, hopefully low, right? But I don't always see Zacha. He seems like the kind of guy that would get some attention, especially he's playing pretty well. He's getting some points. He seems like the kind of guy that might get some attention, especially come trade deadline. Like, people are like, oh, we're going to, pump and dump Arvidsson and Middlestat and all of this. And Zacha might be a guy, especially if he's playing well, that could really do something or get you back something at the trade deadline. I'm not saying he's got to be traded and Sweeney's got to trade him, and none of that. I'm only saying I see a situation where he can get something. And if people are crawling around you with a first and a prospect, and it's for Pavel Zacha, I don't know how you say no to that. Like, we're trying to build the team up. Zacha's great, but is he in 5 years, would he be worth more than a high first round pick and a good prospect? Like, it's hard for me to imagine.
Yeah. It's definitely a tough decision. That's for sure. Okay. I can't disagree with anything that you put out there. And Kevin adds in, which, welcome, Kevin, by the way. I don't see the point in trading Zacha personally if the aim is to be competitive quickly.
It kind of comes down, but that's, I guess, what I'm thinking. Like, if we're trading Zacha, shit did not go well this year. Right? Like, and I think that's part of why all of this popped up. I mean, it's coming from Vancouver and their beat guys or whatever, but if we're playing really well, that conversation, no one's talking about this, right? And so, if we're trading them, something didn't go right, and clearly the intention isn't to try and win a cup in the next couple of years.
Right. And the other thing I'd like to point out too is with like Zacha, I'd rather keep him around, and possibly move him down to the third line like Charlie Coyle was, his first year. You know what I mean? When you had Coyle and Frederick playing together, you have a Zacha down on that third line because your own prospects have cracked the lineup. You know what I mean? Like Patra's here, Lysel's here. Minton's moving up because he's gaining more traction and, working on those breakaways and getting those. I don't think getting rid of Zacha is smart. I think it would be dumb to get rid of Zacha. I think he's going to get you more assets than anyone else besides David Pastrnak or Morgan Geekie. But I don't see why you get rid of Pavel Zacha.
Josh wins. He's the first one to mention pull up one of the kids. Anyways, Jay, I know you got to get going. Do you have anything that you want to, obviously pitch your show before you head out, but is there anything, final thoughts that you want to add before you head out?
The biggest thing for me is everyone chill out a little bit. Like, it is 12 games in, things don't look great, but things don't always look great early in seasons. Like, let's give it some more time, which is what I'm trying to do with this season of the Baked Bear. 10 games at a time, hopping in with an episode. There's so many of people dropping, episodes every week or twice a week, breaking down every game. I'm going to try and get that bigger picture, and try and maybe encourage some of that chilling out, right? Giving more of a broad thing instead of the part of the getting out of the 24-hour sports news cycle. So I'm going to try and break free from that and have some fun with it, and we're going to see what happens.
Sounds good, Jay.
Awesome. Jay, thanks so much for jumping on with us, and
thanks for having me on, guys.
Have a great evening. We'll talk again soon.
Cheers, guys.
Night, Jay.
So, real quick, Dom's grandson says it's time to go trick or treating because you're dressing up.
Listen, I just put my headband on. I put my bats on. I figured it's the pod's closest to Halloween, so
it is. Yes. So
can we go back a little bit?
I just wanted to get his thoughts before he headed off.
You talk about one thing that Jay brought up was you look at last year versus this year. And I think the big difference, like last year, they had such a bad camp that people swept under the rug. And then they just were horrendous under Montgomery. I think this year, with the exception of the stupid asinine mistakes and penalties, they're in every game, with the exception of the first Colorado game, the Ottawa game, obviously, the game to the Ducks, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like they don't have a chance to win. So I think that's the frustrating part.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just looking back at some of these, like, obviously the ones that they won, but then if you look at the Tampa, even Vegas, Utah, you could throw the Florida game in there.
They should have won that Florida game. That fluky off the foot.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 games right there. That's another 8 points. Guess what? That puts you first in the East.
Right.
So, like, those are 4 games that you could and arguably should have won, which would have you go from 9th in the wild card race, second worst team in the conference, to beating the Devils for first in the conference.
Right.
First of all, that just shows how small of a sample we're working with right now. Because 4 games at the end of the season aren't going to swing you that significantly. Although, I mean, the last couple of years, it's the playoff line that could make the difference. But right now, you're tied with Columbus, Buffalo, Tampa, and the Rangers, points-wise. It's the start of the season.
Right.
Like, if you're losing these games now, and in a month and a half you start winning them, well, there's a team that's winning them right now that's probably going to start losing them, whether that be, Detroit, or someone gets injured in Toronto and they start losing close games. Like, things like that can flip the tables real freaking quick.
Well, and not to mention, I mean, they're 1 point behind Florida. 1 point behind Toronto, 2
Yeah.
points behind Carolina, 2 points behind, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like yes, they're 15th in the conference. They're 1 point out of last place. But it's not as big as.
Yeah, he said they're last in the Atlantic, but they're 2 points out
Yeah,
of
but
third in the
I'm
Atlantic.
talking about the whole conference.
I
I'm
know.
talking. I mean, yes, the Atlantic matters, but in the same sense, like Tampa's 4-4-2, Buffalo's 4-4-2, Ottawa's 5-5-1, Florida's 5-5-1. Like, who has winning records? They're all 500.
Right. And to put it in a different perspective, you're 27th in the league and you're still only a 3-game win streak away from, or a 4-game win streak away from being first in the league.
Right.
So
Yeah,
like
too early in the.
It's a 4-point swing between you and the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going with it. Like, again, am I expecting this team to win the President's Trophy? Absolutely not.
I hope not.
Yeah, right. And as Kevin said, Dom mentioned it a few weeks ago. The way the league is going with the cap, the way to build your team is through the draft. So Kevin adds, with that said, we need to just let this team have a really bad season because he's rooting for draft picks and he is cheering for losses and getting bummed out by wins because he wants that top prospect. I think the Bruins are too good. I think they're going to fall in that, let's say 13 to 17 range without the draft lottery. And then the lottery may help them. It may hurt them a little bit, but it's still going to be a deep draft. They're looking at, if they end up moving someone this season, whether it be Azaka or, even Andrew Peak. I know you've mentioned that name a few times. Like, there's a couple players on this team that you can push for an unprotected pick or even a top 5 protected pick for a first rounder this season and end up with 3 draft picks in the first round again.
Right. Well, and the other thing is too, is that I think that it would be a little bit easier to deal with the lack of wins if the team is competitive.
But the thing is overall they have been. I think it was the Ottawa is really the only game where I think I look at.
No,
I
would disagree with you because even though the score in even though they beat Colorado 3-2, they could have easily lost that game.
They could have.
You know what I mean?
Okay, but
let's look at
games maybe.
But let's look at Florida also. Florida's playing without Barkov. Florida's playing without they're playing without Kachuk. Would this team be as competitive as they were against Florida if Florida was healthy? So those
absolutely not.
Right. So that's the thing. They haven't even faced. People weren't expecting Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's second in their division with 16 points, and they're supposed to be going through the rebuild.
Yeah, they're the one team that everyone was trying to say was tanking for McKenna actively, and they're second in the division. So Kevin says, all I wanted when we began the season is for the team to show they have the potential to be able to win. They've shown that for the most part, aside from some clunkers. I think the big picture of we are building something. You're 2 for 2 on that now, getting the graphics.
I know, but I was because Ron. I was trying. I don't know. Dom said, face red heart shape, so I did the.
Yeah, I think it's just describing the emoji that he put in because he's on YouTube. I don't think the emojis come through for some reason. Matrix is jumping in as well. Welcome. Thank you for jumping in. Like I said, I think a lot of people though are forgetting the big picture. This was never supposed to be a year where you should look at the team and go, they're going to win in the playoffs. But because they got off to a hot start, because the narrative of how great their camp was, especially with how bad it was last year, people jumped on the roller coaster and they expected great things.
But
And now they're getting slapped with reality again.
But are we discounting how much Hampus Lindholm actually means to this team?
I think people are learning it.
Is he the key to their success, having him in the lineup?
I think we're learning that he is. I think, well, some of us already knew how important he was. Some people are learning just how crucial he is to the organization, to the lineup, and to the on-ice product. I also think so last year when Don Sweeney went into full sell mode, if you look at everybody he brought in mostly forwards. Well, they have a massive depth problem right now on defense because if Hampus Lindholm is out of your lineup, if Charlie McAvoy is out of your lineup, if Nikita Zadorov is out of your lineup, if you lose any one of those guys, right now everything is completely askew. You don't have anybody to back them up. You don't have any depth on defense. I think that's what he's going to look to address.
But then Jordan Harris got hurt.
As good as Jordan Harris was, though, you're not comfortable playing him in a top 4 role every day.
No, but he was okay as Hampus Lindholm's replacement. Like he wasn't a liability on the blue line. That's
right. And I think because Callahan came up, he played very well. He was very defensively responsible. I was a big fan when they called him up of that move. I was a big fan of that move. I think some people are probably wondering why he was the one that went down. That's clearly just to keep like waivers on the table for him the next time they call him up. Also, Asparat's been playing quite well. He looked pretty good. It was a great opportunity to get Lohrei some 9th floor minutes and really just watch the game. I mean, I think the way they're maneuvering the roster management, I think it goes a little bit more to show that they are more on top of things than fans think, if that makes sense. Because there were a lot of fans that didn't understand the whole retroactive IR for Hampus Lindholm just to get 7 guys on the trip and all that stuff.
Right.
I'm not worried about the roster management. You have plenty of cap space, and all of the kids that people want to have called up, they're all forwards. And I get it. Some people want to see Freddie Brunet called up. He needs this year in Providence. Yeah. And as Dom just pointed out, Providence is playing the system perfectly. I don't know why the big club is having issues other than Lindholm out. Dom, you probably know how much practice time Boston has had versus Providence. Like, I think that's a big part of it. As Dom was the one who pointed it out weeks ago, was practice going to be a problem? I didn't think so. I figured they're professionals. They should be able to handle it. They should be able to make some adjustments. I think some of the adjustments were tougher because Hampus was out. But, yeah, I think that's been a bigger part of it than we thought, or at least than I thought.
I think Providence has had a lot more practice.
Exactly. That's what I mean. I think the practice part was underestimated.
Number 2, you have a lot of these younger kids that it's easier when, I mean, how long were they playing the Bruins system versus McAvoy versus Pasta, you know what I mean? Like they were playing the system that Montgomery tweaked a little bit from Cassidy, that Cassidy tweaked a little bit from Julien, but now Sturm has a completely different system.
Which is something also like someone like Nikita Zadorov is a little more familiar with. So I think that's part of why he's adapting to it a little bit better. And I think that's part of why I do wonder if that might be why the Zadorov-McAvoy pairing is significantly better than Lohrei McAvoy, because again, I know a lot of people are sitting here going, oh, Lohrei sucks, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's that much. I think he's just more struggling because he's already struggling defensively.
Right.
And now you're throwing more confusion by changing the system, and he wasn't even good at the one beforehand.
But when you have two behemoths too, it's just like when Chara and Seidenberg would play together. I mean, you have it's not David and Goliath, it's Goliath and Goliath. You know what I mean? So that's the difference right there.
Yeah, and Matrix mentions the Bruins are one significant injury away from being a lottery team. On the back end, yes. On
Even
the
up
front
front.
end,
Even up front.
I think they're more prepared to deal with a hole on the front end than they are on the back end.
Not if it's David Pastrnak or Morgan Geekie. I would disagree with you.
I'll give you pushback on Geekie, but not on Pasta.
Seriously?
Yes. Because they have ways that they can adjust other players in the lineup, and they're not going to get the exact same production out of one player, but they would be able to get offensively, they would be able to sustain.
We talked about how last year David Pastrnak dragged this team on his back, and you're saying they can afford to lose him?
No, Pasta's the one that I agree with you on.
Oh, but Geekie.
I'm saying Geekie's the one I'm giving you pushback on. And yes, Dom says he still has a lot of faith in Lohrei. He may be the only one left. I haven't completely lost faith in him.
I haven't lost faith in Lohrei. I just don't have an issue with him seeing the ninth floor every few games or so until he starts. Like, there's a difference between making mistakes and learning from them and making the same mistakes over and over again. And I think that if they're going to be able, they have to be able to practice, and he needs to build chemistry and trust with McAvoy, and he doesn't have that yet. And something has to give for him in order for him to get that.
Right.
But but what we saw from him 2 seasons ago when he was up and then he was sent down and then he was brought back up, that's the Lohrei we need to see. And last year was a fluke because of the fact that McAvoy was out, Lindholm was out. It was the Dorff's first season. So a lot of pressure was put on Lohrei. And then this year, I don't know if he's gotten his confidence back yet. I don't want him to turn into another. I don't want him to turn into another Zaboral. You know what I mean? Where the confidence and everything else is what affects him from being effective on the ice.
Yeah, I think some of the confidence for Zaboral too was the injury factor, which Lohrei thankfully doesn't have. And I know some people are going to mention it as far as trading Lohrei, because they're already talking about all these other people, and people are already worried about Pastrnak wanting out, and I'm like, let's worry about that if and when he goes to the team and says trade me. But when it comes to Lohrei, it's just like everybody else with Zacha. Like, what's the return, and how are you replacing him? Like, I'm not saying you can't look at options for moving Lohrei, because you might have a replacement or you might be able to get a replacement, but I'm not saying you just ship him out and go, let's get the first draft pick that we get for him. Dom, I know, and Matrix mentions Igor Chinakhov from Columbus. He's definitely someone who would help up front. But right now, I mean, if you are making a trade, aren't you trading for defense right now? Aren't you trying to build your back end more?
Yes.
Like, I really think, because I know there's been a lot of talk with Zacha and Vancouver and all that stuff. I think Sweeney has a price that he's okay with. It's probably a 3-piece price that Vancouver's sitting here going, we're not that desperate right now. And Sweeney said, okay, if you get there, let me know. Because you have no reason to move Zacha and budge off of a price that is high as hell.
Right.
And if he's in that much demand right now and Vancouver wants him that bad, I can almost guarantee you at least one other team is going to want a center that bad as well. So until they're ready to go into a bidding war, you have no need to even pick up the phone until they're ready to meet your price. Now, I worry about whether or not. Well, I wouldn't say I really worry about it, but I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to trade one of my best players' friends.
Right.
Especially someone who can basically fill a hole in 4 spots in your lineup.
Right.
Like, exactly, Dom. Dom asks what defenseman is available to help him. That's where, do you remember the comment made by Marco Sturm last week? I think it was Ty Anderson's question, where he basically was just like, well, the roster's the roster. Like, we have limited options.
Right.
I think it was more so him basically going like we've talked about. Why are you going to call up one of the kids who's a forward when your problem is on defense? You don't have options on defense to fix this. That's how I took it.
Well, it's not only that, but again, we talked about it last week. You know, if you're gonna call up a forward, who are you sending down? Who are you putting on waivers?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not just gonna, so you have to look at it all different ways. You can't just, I mean, a lot of people are saying that they want to see the Providence offense in a Bruins uniform, but just like Kenny said 2 weeks ago, you're seeing Providence results, but you're watching the Bruins, but you're not watching Providence. You know what I mean? So how did Kenny word it?
You're seeing Providence numbers, but Boston actions or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
He did nail it though when he said it, and we both. It was just one of those things. He said it perfectly. And yeah, I mean, right now Providence and Wilkes-Barre Scranton are both tied as the first period's coming to an end. It's 0-0, and guess what? They only have 7 shots in the first period as well. So,
Right.
Matrix says if there's no injuries on the back end, then stack the offense. But you have to. You've already suffered injuries on your back end. You have to fix that. And your injuries on the back end that you have suffered show that you can't suffer one.
Right.
Now, would you rather, if you're going out to make a move right now to dress your defense, which I agree with Dom, no defenseman right now is out there. There's no one actively selling a defenseman. The only person that you might be able to pry out, God forbid you could do it right now, would probably be Erik Karlsson. No thanks.
I'm set.
Yeah, thank you. Would you rather trade Zacha or Matthew Poitras? Or let me rephrase the question. Which one would you rather have on the team in 3 years? Matthew Poitras or Pavel Zacha?
Well, I don't know. Because I don't think we've seen Poitras's full potential yet.
I don't think we have either.
We've seen it in the AHL, but we haven't seen it in the NHL.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. So I think that I think it depends on what you get for either one of them. I don't think it's as simple of who I want on the roster. It's what you're getting in return.
Absolutely. And that's why
you know what I mean? Because
I'm not adding to this roster. You're not adding to the roster for this year. You're adding a player who you're getting similar to the way you traded for Hampus Lindholm. You might be getting him with a year left on his contract or in the final year of his deal, but then you're adding on the extension as part of it.
Yeah, I think I think that right now I'm not making any moves on this team. I'm not. Like, in terms of trading away a player to bring it, because unless you're going to bring in someone that's going to help the team right now, it's too early in the season to trade for prospects.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Like, the only name that I can even think of right now, and I don't even think Calgary would move on from him right now, would be Rasmus Andersson. And that's just because his name was out there over the summer. And so that's someone who's prepared to be moved.
Right.
But I'm not sure right now that's the move to make in October.
Right.
November.
Right.
Like,
no, talk to me at the trade deadline or close to the trade deadline. If they're still at the bottom and they're selling again like they did last year, that's different. because when they traded Brandon Carlo and they got Fraser Minton, well, that made sense.
Yep.
Was Brandon Carlo helping your team last year? Yes, but Fraser Minton's going to help your team 3 years from now. Brandon Carlo's not going to help the team 3 years from now. But that was different. That was the trade deadline. So that's the part that I think fans are stuck on, is that you're looking at 12 games. They're 5-7. They're 2 games below 500. Like you said, any swing and they're all of a sudden in contention. And again, and it's funny because one of the things that I was talking to Jay about yesterday on his pod is that Sweeney and Cam Neely both, especially Cam Neely, people are going to circle the Boston Bruins on the schedule and be like, oh, that's a tough out. Well, they haven't been a tough out.
No.
That's the problem. They haven't been a tough out. And I think a lot of that has to do with Lindholm not playing. We saw last night that once they got their groove, once they figured out how they were going to play, they were a tough out, and they scored 5 unanswered goals, right?
Yep.
But if they can claw their way into a playoff, they could make it past the first round, depending on who their opponent is, if their defense is playing the way it should.
Yeah, the keyword is should.
Because they are physical, they are big. With the exception of Lori, they are a big defensive unit in terms of size and physicality.
I think Jokiharju is the smallest on that blue line.
Is he smaller than Lori?
It
may be height-wise, but I don't think weight-wise.
He is 6'2", 205. Lori is 6'5", 218.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, the reason why I would want that is because I'm not like every other person, and I don't want to see the Bruins tank just to get a draft pick. I'd rather see a good competitive team, because you never know what can happen in the playoffs. And I will automatically go back to the Los Angeles Kings when they were the 8th seed, and they went on a run because they had a hot goaltender, and they won the Stanley Cup. And then I'll go back to 2011 when the Bruins had no business doing what they did in the playoffs and beating Vancouver. So anything can happen once you get in the playoffs. So why wouldn't I want this team to make the playoffs?
Dom McAvoy, 6'1", 211. So he's just a little bit bigger than Jokiharju. Kevin says we're not tanking, we just suck.
But I don't think this team sucks.
They're not as bad as the record shows.
That's part of the roller coaster. Because again, if you take out that Ottawa game, which was absolutely 100% one of the worst showings we've seen, even compared to last year.
Yeah.
4 power play goals. It was just awful the way they played. And then the first 7 minutes of last night's game was absolutely putrid.
Kevin, you're going to make her want to strangle you. We know that this isn't the 2011 team.
Kevin, don't make me come through this screen.
And I don't think I've never heard you say this team was going to win the cup.
No, but I'm also saying, like, again, and I'm not saying this through black and gold colored glasses, because I see the deficiencies. I see, but I've also seen what this team can do if they're playing their game.
Right.
And again, something that Mark Recchi always says, when you have a 7-game series and you're playing against a physical team like that, just like Florida, who is a hard physical team,
yep,
anything can happen. And God help you if Jeremy Swayman pulls a Bobrovsky in the playoffs.
Right. Or, I don't know, a Jeremy Swayman the way he did before.
Follow.
Yeah. Let's see. Kevin said, no, she said if this team makes it into the playoffs, anything can happen, and then use 2011 as an example.
I also used the Kings as an example.
I noticed how he overlooked that too.
Yeah.
Dom says that he spoke to a Bruin scout over the weekend and he loves the upcoming draft, laughed and said, I hope we have all of our picks. Everything I've heard, it's supposed to be a very deep draft, and everything that I've been able to catch for the draft eligible players, the OHL and stuff like that, it does look like a great draft. I'm not taking away from that, but anybody that they draft, unless it's, and even then, it's still questionable, but unless it's Keaton Verhoff, you're not getting a defenseman who can help your team next season. Now, let's say Kevin's dream comes to fruition and you get that top pick. First of all, are you taking Gavin McKenna or are you taking the defenseman that you desperately need in Verhoff? You're
taking McKenna. You have to, because the team.
Verhoff is arguably more NHL ready right now.
Kevin.
Just saying.
Kevin.
I'm not making Gayle. That's what's brewing after dark, Kevin.
Don't make my bats come flying.
I wonder if there's an animation for the bats. I doubt it. But it just, this team needs help defensively.
The team doesn't need help defensively. The team needs depth defensively. That's the difference. Because
Yoki Haru is turning into what Mike Riley would have been if they hadn't buried him in Providence.
He's playing better.
He's getting better, but you can vastly improve upon him. Vastly.
But I'm okay with him for now because he's not making the mistakes that Lorai's making.
I'm okay with him for now because there's also no better option.
Well,
the thing is with Lorai and his mistakes, we have already seen Callahan come in and play with fewer mistakes. We've seen Asparot come in and play with fewer mistakes. We've seen Jordan Harris come in and play with fewer mistakes. Now, are they better players than Mason Lorai? No. Are their ceilings higher than Lorai's? Also no. But which ones are playing better right now?
Well, and I think that's the thing that people always, you can't always just look to the future. If you just look to the future, which is what you always do, right?
I mean, you're trying to win in the now while
keeping if you're trying to win in the now, who are your best options? Is Yoki Haru one of your best options right now?
On the right side, yes.
Right. So, what's your other option?
Continuing to bench Mason Lorai. Now, that being said, I've already said, and you've heard me say this, I don't think this team is going on any sort of deep playoff run this year unless they massively turn it around and start to win, the 6 games or 5 of the 6 games that they just dropped in a row. They have to win 5 of those for there to be any thought process that this team could do anything.
But you're only 12. You've been scouting all night. You're only 12 games into the season.
Right, but that's how I felt about the team coming into the year. There's nothing about this team that tells me they're going to go on a deep playoff run. And I've been saying that all along. That's why I'm okay with Mason Lorai getting more minutes now because he's learning on the job. He's been thrown to the Wolves. You can't do anything about it. He has to learn on the job.
He was thrown to the Wolves last year. How many more chances does he get?
This year is his, I don't want to say it's his last year, but after this year, where he stands is going to be significant in what you do going forward with him. And his contract matches that. Because he was up for the new contract this year, and it goes this year and next year, I believe. So the fact that they only gave, was it this year? Yeah, it's 3.2 for this year, 3.2 for next year. He will then be 26 and be an RFA again. So it's one of those things where he stands at the end of this season is basically going to dictate what you end up doing when that contract is over.
But see, I disagree with you. It's not just this season, it's next season as well.
I mean, I think you give him a chance next season for sure. But, you know, if he's
but he has 2 years, but he is this year and next year on his contract.
How are you going to feel about next year if he's still playing game 82 the way he's playing right now?
But so there's a difference. That's when you say, okay, you move him to Providence. You put him on waivers and you put him in Providence. I don't think if
you risk him on waivers is basically it.
Huh?
You risk putting him on waivers because there's going to.
But if he's that bad and you're not going to move forward with him in a year, what's the difference?
I agree. I'm just.
Well, so then why are you risking? You're not risking it.
That's why I'm saying this year. You asked how much longer does he get, and I said this year.
Right, but if he continues in game 40 the way he is in game 6, he doesn't deserve to be up here the rest of the year.
No, and that's when you probably get him through waivers.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So you put him on waivers and you put him in Providence and hope that he bounces back and earns his spot. But he shouldn't. But that's when, because hopefully you have Harris back, you have Callahan back. What is he doing that's better than Callahan or Harris?
Right now, nothing.
Right. So if they're healthy and they're options, why wouldn't you put, especially Harris, who is playing better than Lohrei was when Hampus Lindholm was out? Why wouldn't you give him the opportunity?
So I want to go back to Lohrai's page real quick here. Mason Lohrei has 129 games played in the NHL right now. I think after last night, it's 130. All right.
He didn't play last night.
That's right. So it's 129 still. So the reason why I give him through this year is because most defensemen, that magic number is 200. So I'm with Dom. I'm not ready to give up on him just yet.
I'm not ready to give up on him, but what I'm saying is if he's playing the same way he played in game 5 and 6, in game 40, how much more are you willing to sacrifice on the team to see if he gets over it?
There's a few other things.
He has to show improvement between now and game 41. Or between now and game 50. He has to show improvement. If not, you have to. You absolutely have to.
I think you will see some.
But why do you think you'll see something from him, but not from the rest of the team? Why do you have so much faith in Lohrei, but not the rest of the team?
For what?
For anything. You said defensively, this team is not. So why do you have
now? They're not playing well,
right? And why? Because Lohrei has been playing horrible, and Lindholm's been injured.
They've all been playing horrible, though.
I disagree with you.
Well,
I don't think
Zadorov hasn't been terrible. Okay.
I don't think Zadorov has been horrible.
Overall, their team defense has been horrendous. Overall, their team defense has been horrendous. There have been
and what are the 2 key factors to that?
In what sense?
Why has their defense been horrible?
Lack of practice.
2 key factors.
There's
been not in the lineup because their defense was 100% better with him in the lineup.
Yeah.
Last night. Agreed?
Yeah. 100%.
And who wasn't in the lineup last night?
Mason Lohrei.
Right.
But they've had those kinds of games with Mason Lohrei in the lineup before. He's still made mistakes.
That have led directly to goals.
Yep. So has Charlie McAvoy. So has every other defenseman out there. Zadorov has made his share of mistakes. They haven't been as critical or as crucial or as backbreaking, but he has made mistakes.
And who's a better defenseman, Zadorov or Lohrei?
Right now, Zadorov.
Right now? How about forever? You think
Depends.
Lohrei is going to outplay Zadorov?
At some point in his career, yeah, probably. If
I
he gets to
disagree
his
with you.
ceiling, he can.
I disagree with you. Not with the sample size, which is 129 games, mind you. It's not like it's only 15 games. I don't think he's not that good of a defenseman.
He's still learning the whole position. He hasn't. I'm trying. He's been a defenseman for like 6 years in his life.
Okay.
So he's still learning the overall position. All right. And he didn't go to
if he's still learning the overall position, which I 100% agree with you, he is. Why is he in the NHL? Why is he not in Providence learning his position?
Because they don't have anybody else.
I disagree with you.
They didn't have anybody else.
Michael Callahan could be doing what Lohrei does, and he already knows the position.
So, first of all, we both agreed early coming into the season you weren't waiving Mason Lohrei. That was not an option. You're not subjecting him to waivers right now. Were you willing to put him on waivers to enter the season?
I mean, I wouldn't have been upset if he started the season in Providence. I would not have been upset at all.
How upset would you have been if he got claimed off of waivers going down to Providence?
After the way he's been playing, not that upset.
Right. But without the knowledge of hindsight, knowing how he's playing.
No, because the way he played last year. I mean, you can't have the hindsight. It's what's happening. It's what's happening. It's what's happening in front of our eyes. Just like the same thing about Beecher. I would be okay if they put Beecher on waivers and he got plucked up.
I'd be okay with that too.
Just like I would be okay with Lohrei getting plucked up.
Right now, I'm not ready to say that. I defensemen take longer, for one. He's been playing the position for such little time overall. And I agree with you. I think having him come up into the Boston Bruins was too soon when he did it. The problem is now you can't send him down without risking losing him. So he is forced to learn on the job. Last year, we agree, he was thrown to the wolves in a situation he was never prepared for. And
he didn't learn from it, though.
You can't say that. He's learning a whole new system right now. When you factor in an entire new system to a position he's still learning with zero practice time, I'm not surprised he's struggling. I'm not. Now, did I think he was going to struggle this much? No. That part is a little bit more shocking. To say he's struggling, okay, yeah, it makes sense. To say he's struggling this much, okay. Like you said, he needs some time on the 9th floor. He needs to watch some video. He needs more practice time. Ideally, you could send him to Providence and he'd get 4 practices a week, 3 practices a week down there, whatever it is. And then he'd have 2 or 3 weekend games, and he might only need 3 weeks down there.
Right.
He needs practice. He has had, what is it, 6 days of practice this entire season, plus training camp. Now, training camp was also supposed to be time learning the system, but it's what this is his third? This would have been his third camp? This was his third camp. So he's still learning those ropes. He's only 24.
I get that. But the problem is that when it becomes a liability more than how much stock can you keep putting into him? And I mean, at some point you have to risk putting him down in Providence if he's going to spend that much time on the 9th floor.
I don't know. I don't disagree with the premise of your argument. that if someone's going to spend that much time on the night floor, then you also should be willing to risk losing them to waivers. I don't disagree with that premise.
Mm-hmm.
It's just with Mason Lohrei right now where he stands, there's a lot of reason to understand his struggle. So look at, not
okay,
every
but
player,
again, why are you giving him a free pass and not Victor Arvidsson?
So Lohrei should have been benched 6 games ago. He should have been benched 6 games ago and gotten that view on the ninth floor. But we saw it with Middlestad, and he responded. We saw it with who was the other one that got why am I blanking? Who was the other larger name that Sturm has benched? Like we've seen it a couple times, and the players have responded. So I want to see how he does tomorrow against Buffalo, assuming he's in the lineup. I'd be okay with him sitting him again tomorrow. I'd be okay with it. Your opponent's Buffalo. You should be able to play him against Buffalo and see what he's learned from having sat. But you said they were off today, right? They didn't have a practice?
Correct.
So maybe you let that reset happen a little bit longer. You give him one more day off, like one more game off, and then you have a practice on Friday. I'm trying to look at their schedule real quick. They play at home again on Saturday, so you don't have to worry about travel. So you give them a practice on Saturday, and then you reinsert them in the lineup against Carolina.
Well, they have
on
practice
Saturday.
on Friday.
That's what I mean. You give him the practice on Friday. He had today off. So you benched him yesterday, let him watch. Today is a day off. Tomorrow is a game. You can watch him. You can sit him. I don't care, whichever one you do. I'm okay with either one. Friday is his practice. And then Saturday is definitely when you reinsert him back in the lineup. I would put him back in against Buffalo. I think it's easier to get him back in. But if Sturm feels like the reset needs to come with a practice, I'm very much okay with that. Providence just took a 1-0 lead with a goal from Brett Harrison. So, and then Sunday, Monday is another day where you're going to have travel Monday. I don't know if they'll end up with Sunday off or not.
No, they're not. I'm looking at their schedule right now on the media site. As of right now, they practice Friday, game Saturday, practice Sunday, practice Monday, then travel to New York for the game on Tuesday.
Oh, they'll practice both days. Okay.
Yes.
Good. They need it. So does that mean Wednesday the 5th will be another off day for them?
No, as of right now, Wednesday they are practicing.
Oh. I don't remember what the CBA requires for off days from practice and stuff like that.
Well, because Thursday will probably be an optional morning skate.
Yep, probably.
Friday's practice. Saturday, they're not having a morning skate because it's a 1:00 game. Sunday they practice. Monday they practice. Then they travel. Tuesday, again, it'll probably be an optional morning skate because they're playing that night. And then they travel to Boston Tuesday and they have practice on Wednesday.
And then they have the home game Thursday, an off day Friday, possibly a practice, then the game in Toronto.
Their schedule right now only goes through November 5th on the media site.
Okay. So, yeah, that one they probably haven't figured out yet, and that might just be decided based on how they do in these games.
No, and it also depends on how well or if they play well Tuesday, they may end up giving them Wednesday off, knowing that they're playing Thursday. Just kind of like because if they didn't win last night, they probably would have practiced today.
Probably, yeah. They definitely would have needed it. Real quick before we get out of here, because I'm just noticing the time. What did you think of the shakeup? Husnudinov on the top line, Geeky on the third line.
I think Geeky's one of those players like Zaka, like Pasternak, like Arvidsson, any of those players that have been around a while, that if they get if they get bumped for a lack of effort or a mistake or just to spark something, they're gonna respond. You know what I mean? And I think Geeky responded. And I was okay. It wasn't like he stayed down there for long. I mean, he totally responded. I don't think you're gonna see it going forward. I think you're gonna see that top line back together when they take the ice tomorrow night.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's kind of like one of those things when Middlestat got benched. It's not like he came back and they put him on the third or fourth line. He went back right to his role. As long as they respond, I don't think Marcus Sturm's not going to punish people, but he's going to prove points. But he's not going to punish them. He's not going to do it just to like he said it about Lowry. You know, like him being a healthy scratch is not a punishment, but he needs to learn. And that's the thing. Like Lowry wasn't, when every mistake that he made, he didn't go on the bench and sulk. He went right back out for his next shift. Right. And that's something that Matthew Poitras has always done. You know, Lysell did it last year when he was up. You know, he made mistakes, but then he was still right back out there instead of sulking. And that's the difference between coaching, too. Cassidy would have benched him and not let him go back out.
Right. And then you see the players start to possibly sulk because it's like, okay, I get it. I screwed up, but like, can I go out there and fix it? Can I make up for it?
Right.
And I think that's a huge thing for a guy like Sturm.
Yeah. And Sturm's used to working with younger guys. And I think that's why, I mean, him calling out the players too about not buying in, he's never going to say names directly because I don't think that it's a culture thing. I think it's more of a, you get behind instead of fighting for that lead. They're like, oh, well, this game's in the bag. You know, we lost this game. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
There was it was the Ottawa game, I think it was. Pasta after the game, he talked about that, or no, it wasn't the Ottawa game. It was the New York game because they fell behind, and then whatever, you know, the magic pill of the first period break when they go in and rip off 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. He mentioned the positivity that was there after the first period. Mm-hmm. And then the part that caught my ear was when he said our mindset and focus was there today. Mm-hmm. Almost like specifically singling out in this game, we were able to overcome it because we had the mindset and the focus and it was there today versus other games where it's been just non-existent.
Right.
Okay, well, why wasn't it there? You know what I mean?
Part of it could be the schedule. I mean, we talked about it, 3 back-to-backs with travel in 27 days. Okay.
Yeah. So real quick, that was 27 days. You have 14 games in that time frame. So in 27 days, half of them you're playing games. 3 of them are in back-to-back sets, or 6 of them, I guess you could say. And then 6 days of travel. So that's 20 days right there in a span where you're playing 14 games or 12 games rather.
Right.
And then on top of that,
it's a tough schedule. And there are other teams that are having all this time off, but they're going to get hit with the schedule after the break.
Right. I think it's going to all even out in the wash after 82. Jay's point about it 2 months from now, we're going to look back and be like, the hell, that was a whole different season almost.
Right.
It's going to happen. Like, I'm not trying to ride the emotional roller coaster that everybody else is because I don't want to say like Kevin, I was prepared for this because I'm not rooting for the tank. I'm not sitting here going, you go to tank. It's just this year, a reasonable expectation was push for a playoff spot at best. Push for one. And you know what? You can't push for one in 12 games. 3-game win streak, if they rip off a win against Buffalo and they rip off even a point from Carolina, you're still headed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And was it the greatest of starts? 3-0 was nice.
Right.
But, I mean, first of all, none of these games have gone to overtime, which, based on how some of them have gone, I think that's probably the more shocking thing. We haven't seen a single overtime game.
Yes, we have.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Chicago.
Chicago.
Because
I meant since the
the
losing streak. But yeah, okay, the Chicago one.
Yeah.
None of the closer ones. The Chicago one you should have won in regulation. But
yeah, that Florida game was heading to OT.
It should have. Like, that's a bounce. You will get that bounce later in the season. And if you don't, it's puck luck.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. But they're not as bad as their record says they are, which I'm just trying to pull up the whole overall. Right now they are
5-7-0.
5-7-0. I mean, how much different would we feel about this team if they played this way and they were 7-7? We'd be equally frustrated.
Yeah,
but guess what?
Even if they were 7-5-0.
Yeah, but if they were 7-7-0,
5-1, you know what I mean, or 5-5-1, like Florida. Florida's 5-5-1. Would you feel that much better if they were 5-5-1? No.
But the reason why I went 7-7-0 is because those extra 4 points put you third in the division. So you are feeling the same way about this team, essentially, if they're third in the division or dead fucking last. Because we know this isn't a cup winning team right now.
Right.
But today, it's not supposed to be.
Right.
Otherwise, we would not be looking ahead to James Hagen's season. We're not looking ahead to, hey, look at that. Dean Letourneau's adjusted to the college game. Hey, Providence is off to their undefeated start right now. Like, we're not looking as excited about these young kids because we're looking to move on from them to bring in the piece to put us over the top. We're not there.
Right.
That's the part that I think people need to be reminded of. You got anything else here?
No.
No final thoughts or anything?
No.
Okay.
Just get on the bus and enjoy the roller coaster because that's what this team is this year. This team is going to piss you off and this team is going to excite you. And then this team is going to excite you and then they're going to piss you off. That's what this team is. This team has an identity and it's worse than Jekyll and Hyde. It is a roller coaster, baby. It is a carnival ride. It is putrid. It is exciting. It is horrible and it's disastrous. And then it's spectacular. This team is just a cluster. And I don't know. Again, it's such a small sample size. 5-7 on the season, 12 games in. 10 points? I don't know how much longer you go with, before. I mean, the only roster changes have been on the back end because of injury. And then occasionally Beach will come in for Husadinov. Middlestat was out one game. I don't know when Sturm finally says, all right, we need to try something different.
I think when the offense shuts off.
Right.
You're one of the best offensive teams in the league. You don't need to change anything offensively.
But I agree with you, but how many Bruins fans aren't seeing that? Because
I don't give a damn what the fans are seeing. The numbers and the performance of the team offensively dictate you don't make any changes right now offensively. Keywords are right now. I just you got to give as Sturm said, you're very limited in what you can do to resolve your defensive problems. You have to fix it with the guys that you have. You have to continue to work through it. give them some time to sort through it, give them a couple more of these we literally just almost doubled their practice time in a week.
Right.
Like, we were just going through their schedule for 10 minutes and we just doubled the practice time that they've had all season in 1 week. So like, and their week after, the second week in November, looks exactly the same. Sunday, Monday off, 3 games later on. Like, let's let them get through at least the next 2 weeks before we sit here and say this is what they are and they will be this all season.
Right.
You know, players are responding to the coaching. They're responding to benchings. They're responding to nights off. Like, there is something there.
Listen, I want to just clarify. I don't want to see Lori fail.
I know you don't. I know you don't.
I really don't, because I like Lori. I do. I like him a lot. I don't want to see him fail. But I'm just being, you know what? Sometimes you got to take off that and just be like, listen, it's just not working. We need to move on.
I would say let's revisit that on
game 50.
Yeah. Game 50 works. I was going to say the next checkpoint for me with where his game is at is probably November 16th. It's a day off. You've come back from Montreal. You've got Carolina the next day. Like, you've got a tough week that week of Carolina, the Ducks, and the Kings. It's your West Coast road trip. Like, reassess where he's at that point and see, are you looking to bench him again? Like, overall, how has he done over the last 2 weeks? But I mean, for right now, just get a little bit more practice time in.
Yeah.
So with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Jay, the Baked Bear. Check him out, the Baked Bear Pod. You were fantastic job as a guest in his first episode of season 3.
Thanks.
And yeah, this has been What's Bruin. We will be back next Wednesday at 6:30. Although I am trying to work on seeing, we may have a day coming up where we move it to a Tuesday or Thursday, just so we can try to accommodate for a guest. We will see. So just keep an eye out for that. And
I guess I'm the last to know about this.
No, right now I just know we're going to need to shake some things up to get some of the guests that I want to have on with us. So keep an eye out for it. Otherwise, if you don't hear anything, it's Wednesdays at 6:30.